What is up, you guys? I am Nate the Effing Great. Welcome to another edition of Pro Talk Wrestling here on the Game Changer Network. It is time, long overdue, honestly, that I decided to talk about wrestling this week. We had Elimination Chamber, we had Raw, we had Smackdown, we had so many fantastic things, and quite honestly, some very crazy things that happened this past week in wrestling. Frets, thank you so much for being a part of this, as well as commenting in the comment section here. I'm live here on Spreaker.com. Let's not waste any time. Let's talk about it right now. We have to talk, first off, about the fact that Monday Night Raw and SmackDown had quite a bit of a turn of events. And what I mean by that is that they had NXT stars involved on the show. We had Tommaso Ciampa, we had Johnny Gargano, we had Aleister Black, we had Ricochet. These guys all were in action this past week with, holy cow. I mean, honestly, you had Gargano and Ciampa teaming up to face off against the Bar on SmackDown and the Revival on Raw. And honestly, it was one of those situations where they did not disappoint because Gargano is absolutely amazing. He's earned that name of Johnny Wrestling for a reason. And Ciampa is just one of the best sports entertainers in WWE right now. Honestly, you look him up, he is just absolutely fantastic. And then we had, Aleister Black, who had Andrade Cien Almas on SmackDown, and he also faced off against Elias on Raw. Great showings for them there. We also had Ricochet compete in a tag team match on Raw. He and Finn Balor defeated the team of Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. And on SmackDown, he took on Eric Young. All of these matches were really good. I definitely want to hit some of the finer notes with Raw as well as SmackDown. It's kind of one of those situations where, well, first of all, I want to talk about Ricochet. I have been a big fan of Ricochet for a long time, ever since that he was Prince Puma, even like the long days of TNA Impact, where he was just Puma. He was just this random guy in a mask. He was best known for doing like the Spider-Man deal, where he's able to like just hang on his side in the ropes. It was absolutely cool to see that. He was one of those guys that really got me interested in Impact Wrestling, and I wanted to see more. Then I got to see him in Lucha Underground, which, oh my god, he just absolutely killed it. It was just great to see. Then he went over to NXT, still a part of NXT, at least it seems that way. But, yeah, it was honestly one of the best debuts, in my opinion. And then he just, kept getting better and better and better. Then he had that great matchup with Adam Cole at NXT TakeOver. No, it wasn't Chicago. That was NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Yeah, it should have been Brooklyn. Now he got called up to the main roster. He had a great match with Eric Young. And interestingly enough, they were actually planning on having Ricochet take on Finn Balor on Raw, but then they changed it to a tag team match. Honestly, for once, I actually agree with Raw on this one. You can't just spoil that big of a matchup on network TV. I mean, there's sometimes where you can do that, but I would actually have this matchup between Ricochet and Finn Balor, I would have that take place either at SummerSlam the earliest or WrestleMania the latest. It has to be one of the big four pay-per-views. But SummerSlam and WrestleMania are the top two that come to mind when I think about this. So, yeah, the sky's the limit for Ricochet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him, possibly being on their main roster. I think that these were just kind of like, I call them like NXT showcases, where Triple H just brought these guys up, and I mean, we're still getting over the fact that, we have so many other people that they introduced from NXT to the main roster. They had, the Heavy Machinery, Lacey Evans, Nikki Cross, EC3, and it's just one of those situations where now they're calling up more people it's going to be tough because now you're going to have such crowded, rosters that not very many people are going to get the respective times that they need, but also people are going to get released. And trust me, I'm going to talk about those releases in just a bit. Like I said, matches with Alistair were great. The tag team matches with DIY, just awesome. But I will say this, that one thing in particular that I had an issue with when it came to Raw was the crowd. I think they were in Lafayette, Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken. And this is near where, this is near New Orleans, if my knowledge serves me correctly. This is where they had all those, great memorable moments. And you have a crowd that is basically just dead. They really did not show any kind of, they didn't show like any kind of livelihood. They didn't show any kind of, any kind of just excitement for a lot of these guys. They just kind of came out and it was just kind of like, whatever. It's just kind of like that. And then we see the matches and it's like, oh yes, this is awesome. If it was happening in some place like, I don't know, Canada or in Wisconsin or New York, all of these NXT guys would be absolutely getting cheered for. And it was just great to see that. And I even made the joke on Twitter where I basically said, do you think that Vince McMahon actually came out and actually yelled at the crowd like he did it that one time? Just basically saying like, you guys aren't being at all excited. We're giving you what you want. You're getting NXT people. Why are you doing this? And it's like, I would love for him to just go out to the crowd and just say, you're all fired. And maybe he even makes an announcement that they're not even coming back to that arena anymore. Vince, bring these events to the Midwest. Bring them to the Western area. Why must you always pick the South? Why must you always pick the Northeast? Just because some of these arenas are bigger. Okay, but at least give some of the other places a chance. My God, it's just amazing. And this is one of the perfect examples that there are so many people that are just going to be like, well, whatever. We are going to get something better anyway. And I'm wondering if that's what was going on for that. Was they have such great moments and they have such great, events there that they're just kind of like, well, we already paid the ticket, but, we're going to expect something better to happen. And unless something better happens, we're not going to really do anything. I don't know. That's just my thought process on it. It's really dumb, but it is one of those situations where it kind of does hurts. It really hurts to, see WWE fans not exactly giving the respect that, the superstars have earned. At least be somewhat excited for them. Just, oh my God, you guys are, come on. Let's talk a little bit about NXT, because we had a major title change that took place this past week. Velveteen Dream, after winning the When Worlds Collide, When Worlds Collide tournament, won the North American Championship from Johnny Gargano. A shock to a lot of people, and also just one of those situations where it's like, well, it's about time, Velveteen Dream gets that, championship back. I am hoping that this wasn't a situation where it was like Johnny Gargano's having his first title defense and he lost, because I call that the Sasha Banks effect for obvious reasons. It's one of those things where it's like, wow, they took the belt off Johnny like really fast. I'm kind of surprised by this. So maybe this tells me that Johnny's going to be called up very soon. If not, work in a program with Tommaso Ciampa. Maybe it's going to be like the final battle between Ciampa and Gargano, because I have been predicting this for months, as well as other people, that one of the headline matches for NXT TakeOver New York, if I'm not mistaken, is probably going to be Ciampa and Gargano, like the final battle between the two of them. It's going to be tough for them to, top their last man standing match that they had, or even the no holds barred, the non-sanctioned deal. It's just going to be very hard to top these matches. It's just going to keep evolving and snowballing into something better. But congratulations to Velveteen Dream. Like I said, well deserved. It took them long enough to put a belt on him. he definitely deserves it. It's really cool to see that. A little bit of Impact, and it's one of those things where I haven't really watched, Impact religiously as of late, ever since they did the whole switching networks and going to Twitch. My work schedule doesn't really allow me to, watch that. But this week's Impact, I thought, was actually a bit interesting from the bits and pieces that I saw. From what I saw, I really liked what they are doing with the Lucha Brothers and LAX. This past week they had a title defense. Lucha Brothers came out on top. And then afterwards, LAX attacked the Lucha Brothers, and then they just ripped their masks off, showing the ultimate sign of disrespect. This is going to be a very interesting story. I'm very curious to see what happens with this, because it's going to be electric. It's going to be rocking. I could tell. The other major thing that I have been really invested in is what they're doing with Su Yung, Allie, and Rosemary. During this past week on Impact, Father James Mitchell made an appearance on there, and he had a conversation with Rosemary. Basically, it is a match that will be set in the ring. It is the Demon Assassins army taking on James Mitchell's army. If James Mitchell's army wins, they get Rosemary. If Rosemary team wins, then Allie is freed from James Mitchell. I'm looking forward to that. And honestly, that has to be a pay-per-view event. That has to be a pay-per-view, matchup. You can't just put that on free TV. I am going to fight that, and I know it might be crazy for me to think, well, can they prolong that all the way till Slammiversary? I want to say it's in the next month or two, but I think they could pull it off. I really do. I really think that they could pull it off. I legitimately want to see that be one of the main event attractions going into a big event. Like I said, it can't just be a random thing that they put on Impact Wrestling. It just does not make sense. You have to make it a big fight feel. There's so much that's on the line. It has to be something that people are going to want to buy it and be invested in. And I believe that people are invested in it. It's just really, really cool to see that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame, because this past week they announced the first inductees into the WWE Hall of Fame. The inductees for this class so far are D-Generation X, and so far they've announced that it's going to be Shawn Michaels, Triple H, X-Pac, the New Age Outlaws, and long overdue, but finally getting it, we're getting Chyna in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, a lot of people have definitely talked about the fact that they want Chyna to just go in by herself, that she deserves to just have an individual Hall of Fame deal. I do agree with that. And here's the thing. If WWE is going to be this kind of lame company, yes, I'm going to take shots at them. If they're going to be like a lame company and just do this whole deal where it's like, well, we're giving you what you want, we're just packaging her with a bunch of other people. If they want to be that lame, I'm going to say, you know what? Chyna's getting in the Hall of Fame. I've already made the announcement that if they do not give her due justice at the Hall of Fame, that I'm going to be doing a podcast with a couple other people, and we're going to give Chyna the true induction that she deserves. Because if they're just going to briefly talk about her, that she does not deserve that. She has definitely been a pioneer of the women's division here in WWE. She deserves a lot more than what they would give her. So if they screw her over at the Hall of Fame, then you can expect the Game Changer to hold a podcast, especially for Chyna. But there are a lot of rumors as to who could be also inducted into the Hall of Fame. This is kind of another one of those situations where it's like, oh, they're being lame again. But I think that for this one, I could make an exception. There's been rumors that the Hart Foundation is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Honestly, again, long overdue. The Hart Foundation, consisted of like Bret Hart and Jim the Animal Neidhart, but they also added new members to the Hart Foundation, which included, Brian Pillman, British Bulldog, and the late great Owen Hart. This would be one of those situations where I think I could probably accept it, because what with everything that's going on with, with Owen's widow, she's not on really good terms with WWE. And honestly, if I remember correctly, she's not even on good terms with Bret Hart. It's one of those things where if she approves of just this kind of, bunched up deal, so that way it's more about the Hart Foundation than just, pawning off of her husband, then I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, there's set circumstances for this. I understand it. If this is the way to do it, then I'm just thankful that Owen Hart is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, period. So that's my thought process on that. It's one of those things where Owen Hart deserves to be in the Hall of Fame individually. He shouldn't be clustered in it, but at the same time, like I said, circumstances just kind of force us into just being like, okay, we can accept this. But also long overdue for, British Bulldog. This is a guy who, again, should also be inducted individually by himself. You look at a lot of his great matches that he's had in WWE with guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. He just is one of those guys that is so gifted and so talented, and definitely one of those guys who just was taken away from us just way, way too early. So, if I were to pick some other people to be in the Hall of Fame, actually this is another one that actually was a bit of something that was kind of cool, was that there was an article that mentioned that Paige wanted to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And there's a big discussion that I was a part of on Facebook. Some people are just saying, like, no, it's too early, and no, she's too young, and no, she's done it, and blah, 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 she's not done enough. I full-heartedly disagree with that. I do believe that Paige should be in the Hall of Fame. And let me put it like this. There's a lot of people that are going to be in the Hall of Fame, and whether you like it or not, you have to accept it, because a lot of these people have definitely given us a lot of great moments. There's a lot of people that really just that really do deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, even if other people don't deserve it. Some people would argue the fact that that not British Bulldog, the Bushwhackers. There we go. That the Bushwhackers didn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Well, you have to remember they're a sports entertainment industry, so they're going to focus more on the sports entertainment aspect of it. So there might be some people that they will talk about, yeah, this person was a great wrestler, but more importantly, this person was, great on the microphone. He was entertaining for everybody. Fred's actually brought up a good point, asking about the idea, he has, not Rick Rude or Jason Sensation. As far as I know, with the DX deal, they have not mentioned, they haven't really mentioned a deal with Rick Rude or Jason Sensation. If I had to guess, I would think that those two would probably get their own induction, which, again, rightfully so. I think a lot of people are going to remember Rick Rude for the stuff that he was doing and not his brief time in DX. Rightfully so. Going back to the Paige argument, some people have definitely said, she's too young, she doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, she hasn't done enough. I full-heartedly disagree with that because of a few reasons. One, she is one of those women who definitely was not like a lot of, what divas were like back in the day. She definitely changed the landscape quite a bit with her wrestling more than her looks. Two, she became the first ever NXT Women's Champion, which cannot be taken away from her. Three, she has been the only woman to hold the Divas Championship as well as the NXT Women's Championship at the same time. Wrongfully stripped, by the way, which I want to say, I still think that Paige is the rightful Women's Champion of NXT, in my opinion. She's the Queen Bee of NXT. Okay, I'm moving on from that. Four, she was the youngest woman to ever hold the Divas Championship. In her first year, she won the Divas Championship twice. Her first year on the main roster, she won it twice. Yes, it was from AJ Lee, but it was still awesome. They had a really great feud. That's the other reason. Paige can really put on some really good feuds, whether it's her and Nikki or her and AJ Lee. She can definitely put on some really good feuds. Her and Charlotte, oh my gosh, that was some of the... Okay, there was only one point where I will admit they should never have crossed that line, But other than that, you cannot deny that Charlotte versus Paige was a really good feud. So, all honesty, you guys, she's done more than enough to earn this spot in the WWE Hall of Fame, and she should rightfully be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't care what anybody says. She deserved it. She's earned it. Also, Fighting with the Family is out right now. It's a great movie. I would definitely say look it up, watch it, go to the theaters, go to it twice if you feel that passionate about it. I saw it this past Thursday on its opening night, and it was awesome. I will actually have a review about that on the Patreon network in April, so definitely tune into that. It's probably going to be within the first few weeks, actually, because I've been building up reviews, time and time again. And oh, that's right, Honky Tonk Man. That's right. I think there was one other name in there too. I'm trying to remember what it was, but I do remember Honky Tonk. Thank you, Frets. Honky Tonk Man was another one of those guys that is rumored to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Another guy that's well deserved, the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. That definitely deserves that deserves a one-way ticket to the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, it's a pretty good class. Another person I would definitely put down would be Christian. Long overdue. And a lot of people are just saying, no, he should have been inducted with Edge. He's been a great, one-on-one guy in and of itself. If you listen to my review of No Surrender 2008, I mentioned the fact that Christian talked about, how WWE and a lot of other companies didn't see him as like the top guy. And then when TNA said, hey, we want you to be our top guy, he took the ball and he ran with it. And he did. He did an absolutely phenomenal job with it. So, if anybody thinks that he doesn't deserve it, you also have to remember, he had one of the best feuds for the World Heavyweight title with Randy Orton. It was amazing. It was one of those things where he acted like a legitimate heel. He did a great job. Yes, of course, we had that stupid deal in which it was like, oh, well, who's the better man? It's always going to be Randy Orton. Great. Just bottom line, give Christian the induction. He's long overdue for it. Jeez. We had a little mini rant there. So before we go into a commercial break, I actually want to talk about the earlier news that broke out this week from WWE.com especially. They released quite a few people from WWE. The list of names are as follows. They released Ty Dillinger, TJP, TJ Perkins, for a lot of you that don't know, Hideo Itami, and Arn Anderson. So here's where it gets to be very interesting, or also very, very bitter. And I could be bitter for them, but I could also be bitter on behalf of a lot of fans. The fact of the matter is that we saw them do their release statement where it's like, oh, well, this person, so-and-so has been released. And sometimes what they'll do is that they will put down this deal at the bottom and they say, best of luck in their future endeavors, be responsible, be a respectful company. They didn't do that for any of these guys. And I'm one of those people that is legitimately pissed about that. Because you've had so many stars who have left the company on worse terms than these guys, and you just say, hey, best of luck in your future endeavors. And with these three guys as well, I don't even think there was even a deal for Arn Anderson either. It was just like, oh, they've been released for the company. And it's like, that's it? Yeah, that's it. You gotta be kidding me. That is just absolute disrespect. It is just absolute BS, bullshit, that they would do that. It's one of those things where it makes it very hard to like WWE anymore, especially if they pull stuff like that. Yes, I know, there's the whole thing with AEW, and they might sign on with that. Who cares? It's fine. They'll probably get treated better, they'll probably get paid more, and I don't think that all of them are going to be on this like anti-WWE rate. Have you ever really heard, guys like Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho bashing WWE, saying like it sucks working there and blah blah blah? They probably have some instances where they have a right to be better, but for the most part, I never really saw it as one of those situations where they're like, oh, they're just bitter about WWE because they weren't treated right, or oh, they have their own opinion and they weren't high enough to be considered like a main eventer deal. It's like, no, if they have a reason to gripe, they have facts. They have reasons to, have that gripe. They don't just spew things out of proportion. No, they have reasons to, have this deal. They have their reasons to gripe and and talk about this. That's just the way it is. So, hopefully, I'll say it on behalf of everybody here at the Game Changer, Ty Dillinger, Hideo Itami, TJP, as well as Arn Anderson. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Hopefully, you guys find an absolutely great job, great environment that treats you well and treats you like the stars that you definitely deserve to be treated. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to be taking a quick little commercial break. When I come back, I'll talk about Elimination Chamber, give my final ratings on that, also answer a couple of questions that were asked on Twitter, and talk a little bit more about what's to come in the next upcoming months. So stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back.
Check out the guys over at Eclectic Media Project. They bring you podcasts such as Musically Challenged. Whose podcast is it anyway? Want to hear something interesting? And their newest podcast, Page 3.14 News. Check them out on Podbean and iTunes at Eclectic Media Project, on their website at www.eclecticmediaproject.com. Check them out as they are the home with a little something for almost everyone.
Welcome back to Pro Talk Wrestling here, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nate the Effing Great, your host, and it's time to talk about Elimination Chamber. Now, originally when I was doing this, I did mention the fact that Chad Knight was going to be part of this. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to get a hold of him. I was so busy with today that I didn't get a chance to message him. So, Chad, if you listen to this, I apologize. I should have contacted you earlier, but I had a lot of things that just kind of went through my mind. So, all right. So let's talk about Elimination Chamber. How was this event? Honestly, you guys, it was one of those events where, interestingly enough, it's a gimmick pay-per-view, and it is that gimmick that kind of saved it. In all honesty, it really did save it. But don't take my word for it. Let's just talk about it right now. So we start off with the Cruiserweight Championship, of course, resorted down to the pre-show. God help us all. We had Akira Tozawa challenging Buddy Murphy, and what was an excellent matchup. Akira Tozawa was able to hit this beautiful top rope Hurricane Rana to Buddy Murphy. It looked just absolutely incredible how these guys are able to work with each other. Buddy Murphy has become the guy that can work with anyone. It is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Akira Tozawa was doing a deal where he was doing these suicide dives, and when he does suicide dives, he literally looks like he's doing like a headbutt either to like the chest or a headbutt to the head. So his suicide dives look just absolutely, they look absolutely great. But there was a point where Akira Tozawa was doing a suicide dive, and Buddy Murphy actually countered that into a suplex, which was nice. Akira Tozawa would also do the senton splash on Buddy Murphy, who was draped over the top rope. Kind of figure out the logistics for that. But in the end, it was Buddy Murphy hitting the Murphy's Law for the victory to retain his Cruiserweight Championship. Honestly, guys, I gave it a solid B+. It was a great way to start the night off. It was absolutely a tremendous way to start it off. And it just goes to show you that these guys definitely deserve to be higher up than just the pre-show. They do a great job. Give them so much more. We start off the Elimination Chamber event with an Elimination Chamber match. And it was for the tag team titles for the women's division. We had Sasha and Bayley versus Mandy and Sonya Deville starting off the matchup. And I'm also going to do the order in which a lot of these other people came out. After a while, out came the Riot Squad, then they had the Iconics, Naomi and Carmella, and then finally Tamina and Nia Jax. So this was honestly the match that they needed to bring the Women's Tag Team Championship back together. All of these teams did an absolutely fantastic job. And I mean all of them. I'm not going to single out, certain teams that are saying like, oh, this was better, this one sucked. No, everybody pulled their own weight. It was great. So many people would even say like even the Iconics, pulled their own weight. And it was really cool to see that. During the matchup, we see a beautiful pinning combination from the Iconics, where basically I was trying to remember what it was. I think it was like a variation of a roll-up deal, and then Peyton Royce did a jackknife deal. It was like a dual pin deal. It was really, really awesome to see that. And they eliminate Naomi and Carmella from the matchup. Then we see when Nia and Tamina came out, they went on a tear. They were wrecking everybody. They would eliminate the Iconics, and then they would also eliminate the Riot Squad. It was just another showcase of them being a dominant team, which honestly they deserve it. But there was a point where Liv Morgan was on top, and Nia Jax just hits her with a top rope Samoan drop. Tamina hits a superfly splash on both Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan. That's how they get the elimination. Nia Jax then tries to pull out the Goldberg, and she tries to spear Bayley through the pod. Unfortunately, Bayley gets out of the way. Nia goes through the pod, and the plexiglass or the door, the glass that they had there, just almost looked like it just shattered. It was just literally like somebody just dropped a glass. You just see, shards popping out. And you also see these deals with it. It just looked absolutely brutal. Thankfully, Nia didn't get scratched or tore open from that. Because even if it is fake glass, it still can hurt like an MFer. We see Tamina basically get double teamed by everybody, mainly get double teamed by Sasha and Bayley. Bayley would hit the top rope elbow, cover Tamina, and then Sasha would get on top, and then we saw Sonya and Mandy get on top, preferred to eliminate Tamina from the matchup. We see a great showcase between the two women four women, I should say, that started the matchup. We see some points where, Bayley gets wrecked, Sasha gets wrecked, Mandy gets wrecked, Sonya gets wrecked. Mandy actually came close to pinning Sasha. That was one of those moments where it's like, oh my god, they might actually put the belts on Mandy and Sonya. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Mandy throwing Sasha into the steel, put her back into the ring, and then she does like her Angel's Wings deal. I refuse to call it anything else than that because I love Christopher Daniels. Shout out to the main man of SoCal Uncensored for a close 2 count. But then we get a miscommunication by Sonya and Mandy. Sonya would hit a spear on Mandy, and then we would see the tag team. We see this great submission deal with Sasha, who had her shoulder just wrecked. She locks in the bank statement, but she uses, instead of her other arm, she takes her leg, and she's able to just make it look like a very devastating submission maneuver. It was just an inverted version of the bank statement, but it looked really good. Sonya had nowhere to go. Sonya had to tap out. Sasha and Bayley win the quote-unquote first ever women's tag team titles. And honestly, even as a guy that was rooting against them, I could not think of a better team to win it other than them. I give this one a solid A. Great matchup, great spots. All the women looked absolutely phenomenal. It was just a really great matchup to start off the main show, but it also showcased the women's tag team division at its finest, and that was something that they really needed. Now the question is, how were they going to progress going forward? Well, on Raw, we saw Bayley and Sasha trying to, celebrate, and then Tamina and Nia came out, and they tried to get the one-upsmanship on the champs, but the champs basically fend them off, and they're basically just like, you know what, we're ready to take on all comers. Let's do it. No, they didn't have a matchup, but it definitely does prelude to things to come. We have the Smackdown Live Tag Team title match. Oh my gosh, was this... I'm going to tell you this right now. I actually watched this matchup with a few friends, and we were not only drained, but we were just absolutely pissed with this matchup. It was boring. It only had like those nostalgic spots, where Shane does like a coast-to-coast deal. Shane tried to do another coast-to-coast, but got super kicked in the process. That was a cool spot. Shane would do his signature, elbow from the top rope to the announce table, and then Miz would hit the skull-crushing finale on, I believe it was Jimmy, and it looks like he's going to get the pinfall 1, 2, but Jimmy's able to roll it into a crucifix pin for the 1, 2, 3. Jimmy and Jey Uso become 6-time tag team champions. Does nobody see a problem with this? Does nobody see a problem with this? Because here's the thing. If you have done something really stupid before a big event, usually you get punished by losing the matchup. So when Jimmy decides to square up to a cop, he gets rewarded for it. Because that makes sense. And then there's rumors about Naomi and Jimmy trying to actually quit WWE. So, somehow, because of her husband's, her husband's stupidity, Naomi gets punished for it. Makes so much sense. I gave this one a D. It was one of those matches where I just was so pissed off. It was like already early on in the night, you have this. Just no. Just N to the O. No. We go into the Intercontinental Handicap matchup. Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley taking on Finn Balor. This was a pretty stellar matchup. Nothing exactly too crazy, but it was good enough to, basically garner the B- grade that I gave to it. Finn Balor definitely held his own against the two of them. And as to be kind of expected, Finn Balor actually pinned Lio Rush to win the Intercontinental title. So it kind of makes Lashley look a bit strong, but it also gives Finn Balor the title, which, in my honest opinion, I would have saved that for WrestleMania. Let's just hope this is not like a Bayley 2.0 again, where they put the belt on the person early, and they just decide, well, what are we going to do for Mania? Just hope that is not the case. So, oh boy. After this matchup was over, and this made so much sense going into Raw, Bobby Lashley assaults Lio Rush and just beats him down, almost like just like a dad punishing his son. It just going from that, and then you see what happened with the the whole thing on Raw. Just was like, don't like it. But then it gets worse. How does it get worse? The Raw Women's Championship match. Charlotte came out basically making her proclamation about going to WrestleMania. She even does the whole WrestleMania point. And Ronda Rousey comes out and Ruby Riott comes out, and they have a matchup that lasts about, 2-3 minutes? And Ronda locks in the armbar to make Ruby Riott tap out. Yeah, I gave this an F. This was by far the worst thing that they could have done to Ruby Riott. Granted, they gave her a rematch the following night on Raw, which was better, and I loved it. Why couldn't they have just had that matchup in this? Why couldn't they have just had it at this point? Oh, because they needed to promote this whole deal with Becky and Charlotte and Ronda. Yeah, you suspended her for 60 days. Becky comes out, and she grabs her crutch, and she beats down on Charlotte, and then she beats down on Ronda, even going as far as, cutting Charlotte's arm and busting Ronda's head on the side of it. It's one of those things where it's like, oh boy, what? Why? Oh, because of this. It was a cool deal, but at the same time, they could have made the matchup longer and better. I hated this. I really hated it. But then it gets better. Hey, how could we make this even better? We have Baron Corbin versus Braun Strowman in a who really gives a crap no DQ matchup. I shouldn't be that hard. I will say that I did enjoy some of the spots in there. Baron Corbin got sent through a table by Braun. Then Drew McIntyre came out. Then Lashley came out. And then they do this deal where they actually stack up 2 tables, put some steel steps in the ring, and then they do like a triple power bomb like deal, shield like deal on Braun Strowman through both the tables. Corbin gets the pinfall victory on Braun. It was a C- deal, and honestly for me, it would have been lower, but I was very impressed with the strength of Lashley. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is cool. This is great. I liked it. We move on to the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber matchup. The main event in which we saw Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe challenging the new Daniel Bryan for the title. Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe would start off the matchup. After a while, I believe it was... I want to say it was AJ Styles got in the matchup. Then we had Jeff Hardy, then Kofi Kingston, and then finally Randy Orton. Samoa Joe got eliminated first after a phenomenal forearm. Why do you hate this man? What did he ever do? He's legit awesome. He has great mic skills. He's good in the ring. Amazing in the ring. I'm going to say that now. And you have him be the first one eliminated. That was one of those things where it's like, oh, great. Just great. Pissed me off even more, why don't you? Jeff Hardy did a pretty amazing swanton bomb to AJ Styles, who was draped over the top rope. That was one of those things where it's like, ooh, ow, that hurts. Daniel Bryan would then take advantage of that with the running knee to Jeff Hardy and pin him. AJ Styles would get eliminated by Randy Orton with a very, very well done RKO deal. AJ Styles went for the phenomenal forearm, but Randy Orton was able to catch him while he was still on the top rope and hit him with the RKO to pin him, probably to set up the matchup between him and Orton at Mania. Kofi would get some redemption on Randy Orton, 10 years in the making, by hitting the Trouble in Paradise and pinning Randy Orton 1, 2, 3. So it was finally down to Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston in this matchup. And this match, oh boy, you want to talk about excitement. It was exciting. This was literally Daniel Bryan versus Santino Marella 2. Only difference, people really got behind Kofi, and Kofi survived longer than Santino Marella. Kofi was able to hit an SOS for a very close 2 count. Daniel Bryan hit the running knee for a very close 2 count. He locked in the lapel lock. Kofi was able to get a rope break, which makes sense because it's an Elimination Chamber match, ? Kofi would hit the Trouble in Paradise, try to get the pinfall. Bryan went for like the small package deal, but barely able to get out at 2. They fought on the top of the pod. Daniel Bryan would get knocked off, and Kofi would go for a splash, or I think it might have been a boom drop recreation, but he whiffed it, missed. He ate a lot of canvas, and Bryan would hit the running knee again for the 1-2-3 to retain the WWE Championship. I gave this one a solid A+. This was the match of the night. Great storytelling, great deals in this matchup. I did hate the fact that Samoa Joe got eliminated, but he still definitely provided a solid deal. He provided a good quality matchup, especially at the beginning when they were just doing like the trade-off with chops, or Samoa Joe doing the non-selling deal. It was just really awesome to see that. Final scoring for this pay-per-view, I gave it I'm trying to look at my notes here. I gave this one like a solid B-. Like I said, it was the chamber matches that definitely made the night absolutely wonderful. And even a couple, gems here and there were great. But you look at, of course, a lot of the things that really hurt the show. The no DQ matchup made no sense. It should have been on Raw. The women's title matchup definitely pissed off a lot of people, including myself. And then, of course, we had the tag team title match because that made absolutely, again, no sense whatsoever. It just really, really got under my skin. And it just annoyed the hell out of me. What are we doing? So, yeah, that's going to do it for the Elimination Chamber review. So, what is there to really talk about? I mean, I could talk about the fact that this Sunday, or tomorrow actually, I will be doing a live reaction deal on YouTube talking about the Oscars with my main co-host, VictoriBelle. Definitely go check that out on YouTube. It's in the description, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll definitely see that popping up on there. You'll definitely see them. It'll definitely be up there as soon as the Oscars are, good to go. As far as wrestling goes, of course, I mentioned this before. Frontline Pro will be having a show in Stevens Point at the Holiday Inn. Definitely get your tickets, you guys. There's going to be a lot of great things going on for that event. I can't reveal anything quite yet. But that's also because of the fact that I don't know too much about what's going on for that. It's just going to be an absolutely fantastic show. Check that out. Also, Water City WrestleCon will be taking place near the end of April, in which, for those of you that are very interested, check out the Game Changer booth. That is going to be there. We're going to be doing actually a live show while we are there, talking about the matches, talking about a lot of things that are going on there. And I will reveal this nice little nugget for you guys. The fact of the matter that Jake Strong, a.k.a. Jack Swagger, will not be attending the show. He had some obligations that he couldn't attend to, so they replaced Jake Strong with Johnny Mundo. That is one of those things where it's like, whew, you already look at how stacked this card is right now. You put in Johnny Mundo in there, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And they've already announced the main event for that show. It's going to be Logan Lynch taking on Johnny Mundo for the ACW Water City the ACW Heavyweight Championship. There we go. It's going to be, oh man, that matchup, I can already tell it's going to be just beautiful. Mwah, just magnifico. Oh, that's going to be amazing. I am just so looking forward to that. Yeah. So, okay. I did post this on Facebook as well as on Twitter for people to ask me questions that I will answer right here on the show. I got a few questions here. Actually, about 4 of them that I will answer right now. First one is, who do you think wears each WWE title next? Now, the way this question is worded, I assume that they're talking like all the championships. I'm going to exclude NXT just for the sake of time, I guess you could say. So let's start off on Raw. So we have the Raw Tag Team titles. I could see Revival dropping it to Heavy Machinery, give Heavy Machinery the right kind of deal and right kind of push. They definitely could be a great contender for the tag team titles. I could also see Authors of Pain winning them back, maybe doing like a little hot potato between Revival and Authors of Pain. Honestly, I kind of want that. That would be absolutely awesome. Then we'll do the Raw Women's title. I cannot, choose anybody else besides Becky. I do believe Becky Lynch is going to win the title at WrestleMania. That's the way it's going to be, and it's going to be amazing. The Intercontinental Championship, man, that's going to be a interesting one. I'm going to go with a wild card pick, and I'm going to say the title will go on a heel Bobby Roode. I think that title definitely could use another great guy that they could kind of experiment with and be like, hey, you're a champion, and we want to mold you into the next, big top guy. So I think Bobby Roode, heel Bobby Roode, would be a great pick to take on Finn Balor even. Oh, man, I kind of want that now. And as far as the Universal title, here's what I'm going to do. I do believe that Seth Rollins is going to dethrone Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Beyond that, I could see them putting the belt on Drew McIntyre. I think that he would be a perfect fit for that. Otherwise, maybe heel Roman Reigns. The only reason why I say that is because Raw is going to also have Roman Reigns coming out. He's going to give an update on his health. I think that's going to be absolutely awesome to see that and to see how he's doing, if he's going to be even able to compete soon. It's one of those things where I painted this picture on a chat that I was in that Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins, they dethrone the Beast. They slay the Beast at WrestleMania. It's like a huge triple powerbomb to him. Seth Rollins wins the title. Maybe it ends with Seth Rollins holding the belt up and they do the whole Shield pose. And then the night after, Roman Reigns turns heel, provided that Roman Reigns is healthy enough to compete. So now we go on to the SmackDown side of things. SmackDown tag team titles. Honestly, I want to see the Club get the titles. I think that the Usos versus the Club would be a really good feud. And they just... they're Good Brothers, I should say. They're really known as the Good Brothers. Let's be fair. I just think that the Club definitely deserves either like a repackaging or a repush, because they just were champions for about a couple months and then it just was like, they fell off the face of the earth. They didn't deserve that. They really didn't. The United States title. I think one of the natural choices is Andrade Cien Almas. I think that he is long overdue for a title run, but I think I could also see him be WWE champion within the next, probably before the year ends. I could see that happening. And then the WWE title, right now it seems very academic. I'm hoping that they put the title on Kofi. He's long overdue for a title run. He is definitely one of those guys that would definitely give a lot of prestige to that title. And he was screwed when he first had that big push, and he should have been the world champion. But then the whole deal with Randy Orton happened, and then it was like, great. So we don't get that push. So it took him 10 years to finally get this, this push. He deserves it. Give it to him. I'm hoping that, the title change happens at WrestleMania. I think that would be awesome. What is your first wrestling memory? So this is where it gets to be kind of interesting, because I think I need to go back and watch the full episode of these two shows, because it was actually a Raw and a SmackDown in 2001. The Raw that I first watched was the one where Rock came back and he had the choice between the Alliance or the WWF, and he, rock bottomed Vince, and then he rock bottomed Shane, and then he just says, "Finally, The Rock has come back to the WWF." I remember that, and I just fell in love with The Rock. I thought he was awesome, just an absolutely great star. My earliest deal with SmackDown happened in that same year, and it was during the whole Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle rivalry building up to SummerSlam. Stone Cold did the whole deal where he basically breaks Kurt Angle's ankle with a steel chair. They were taking him up the stretcher. Stone Cold pushes the stretcher over, and then he just starts stomping on Kurt Angle, and he just says, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America." He's just stomping while he's saying this. It's just so funny. then he just starts, bad mouthing or trash talking the crowd, and then Kurt Angle just locks him in the ankle lock. I always found that to be funny because Stone Cold had one of the funniest reactions to getting locked in that ankle lock. But I think that was also during the point where Stone Cold had the ankle lock locked in on him beforehand, so it probably hurt him even more. But again, it was just funny. It was just funny how that worked out. And then we saw members of the Alliance. They came in. But really captivated me, and what really kind of kept me entertained with this was, I don't know if it was Edge or if it was Christian, but one of them was like, just leaped up, and they were trying to break up the Alliance members from attacking Kurt Angle. And I just remember, me and my brother, we saw that moment, and it's funny because I made this comment, and we both kind of laughed about it, where as soon as Edge or Christian was in the air, it just seemed like it seemed like one of them just went in the air, and they were like, "Hug me!" It was just so funny. I don't know why I keep laughing at that, but it's just so funny that it happened that way. But yeah, those are my earliest memories when it came to Raw and SmackDown. Best worst wrestling games. Oh boy. I'm going to stick with video games because I haven't really had to deal with like board games or stuff like that. So, best game as far as video game wise, I think that SmackDown: Here Comes the Pain is definitely one of the top ones that comes to mind. As far as one of the worst, I think when they did that whole transition from into like WWE 2K, I think the first iteration, I think it might have been 2K14. I just remember the graphics just looked horrible, and the wrestling moves looked really bad. It just did not look well at all, but they improved very much so as the years went on. So, yeah, I think I give credit to 2K for just getting better and better as time went on. But just that first, like the first one that came out, I was just like, oh god, this thing's ugly as shit. And the final question here would be, how would you book the new Hart Foundation's hypothetical WWE NXT debut? So here's what I'm assuming what they're asking when it comes to this question is, the new Hart Foundation was actually the Hart Dynasty. It was David Hart Smith and Tyson Kidd and Natalya. They were basically three members of the Harts. They kind of came in and they got involved in the Vince McMahon Bret Hart deal. Then they went on to win the tag team titles, and then they had actually one of the first major feuds that they had was with the debuting Usos and Tamina, which I thought they did relatively okay. And then they had then they had these forgettable tag team rivalries, and it culminated at Night of Champions, in which they lost the tag team titles to Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes in a gauntlet match. And this was really weird because this is where they had those like really weird, tag teams. They had Mark Henry and Evan Bourne as a tag team in this matchup. It was just, what? It was weird. So how I would have booked it, how I would have done it differently, is the fact is that they did have, some pretty established teams in this, division. And they even did that for Extreme Rules when they had Miz Show defeating one team after another, and then they lost to the Hart Dynasty. So how would I book them differently, provided they were in NXT or in WWE? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm basically going to just go through like the first year of when they came on to WWE. I think it would have been 2010, I would say. because this is where I think in 2010 that's where they got the NXT brand going. They got the all those random challenges and blah blah blah. So I would actually have the Hart Dynasty be the ones that beat DX. They would be a heel team to start off. They would actually work with Vince McMahon, and then at WrestleMania, it seems like the Hart Dynasty is going to turn on their own brethren, their own father-like figure in Bret Hart, but they actually turn on Vince McMahon. They do a great heart attack to Vince to kind of take him out, and that's where they kind of legitimize themselves as baby faces. I would have them battle with a couple of random teams, just kind of like short feuds, like John Morrison and R-Truth. I think that those guys could put on a great show with the Hart Dynasty. MVP and Mark Henry is another one that I think that they could put on a great deal with. I would definitely keep the Usos debuting on there because they definitely do need to have a different, they need to kind of liven up the tag team division a little bit. I would actually have a series of matches between the Usos and the Hart Dynasty where they kind of do like a hot potato with the tag team titles just for a couple times, because here's the thing, a lot of times what ends up happening with these tag teams are that they win the titles and then it's like they only get one reign in, and then it just kind of like, oh well, we did what we could with you, now we're going to split you up and we're going to have you do like stupid stuff. I would actually have, like I said, have them kind of hot potato the tag team titles just a little bit, but still have like incredible matches. Like what they did with the Usos and the New Day, that was good. Because, yes, it was a hot potato between them, but they put on excellent matches. So it was kind of one of those situations where it's like, well, the New Day was on top of their game here. But then the Usos a few months later, they would show their top game, and they would win the tag team titles. And then they would do a deal where it's like, well, the New Day wins it back. And then the Usos, they basically proved like, hey, we're the best, period. And, like I said, the matches get better and better. And that's what I would have them do with the Hart Dynasty as well as the Usos. They kind of build that up a bit. With the Hart Dynasty, in my opinion, would probably win it in the end. And then they could feud on with another team that's involved. I'm trying to think of like a really good team that was going on during that time. Honestly, I would actually have them feud with the Nexus. I think that would be the next big thing. And then that's where they would kind of, they would lose the titles and not hold on to them for at least, I would say, about a year. Have them reestablish themselves as a really good team. And then I would have them win the tag team titles again. So that's how, honestly, I would have rebooked the Hart Dynasty in WWE. Like I said, they were just not really put in the right position to start, and then they just kind of fell off the face of the earth a little bit. Yes, they won the tag team titles, but then it was during a gauntlet match. It was like, nope, we're going to drop them to somebody else. Great. Just great. All right, so I think I've talked on long enough. Thank you guys so much for joining me here for this edition of Pro Talk Wrestling here on the Game Changer Network. You can always find me on Twitter at RealFNGame. You can also find me on Facebook, as well as check us out on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and SoundCloud. Thank you so much, you guys. Coming here from Chicago, and it's a little bit crazy. I'm exhausted, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.